Welcome to the SVG-TV news for Friday, October 29th. I'm Khalil Kato with the details. Schools across St. Vincent and the Grenadines are set to resume on Monday with full face-to-face classes and a blended format. This is according to Minister of Education Curtis King in a statement released today. Minister King said the recommended format for the operation of schools across SVG is based on the percentage of staff vaccinated and the adherence to the health protocols.
Come November 1st, some schools will be open in full for face-to-face classes, while others will commence the blended format. The respective principals or school leaders will indicate to the parents and guardians their respective plans for the blended or hybrid format, which will indicate to parents when they have to send their children to school. Okay? With regards to the face-to-face or on-site format, those schools that have been identified to engage in such a format, they are the ones who will be expected to have their school.
20 primary schools and 10 secondary schools will resume full face-to-face instructions, while the others will employ the blended approach. 6 schools will, however, start their face-to-face classes or blended format 2 days later on November 3rd.
With regards to the secondary schools, Sandy Bay Secondary, the Girls High School, and the Beckway Community High. You would recall that these 3 secondary schools are being temporarily located away from the regular location. The Sandy Bay Secondary School at the Mount Young, in the Mount Young area, Girls High School at Arnisville, the tarmac of the decommissioned E.T. Joshua, and Beckway Community High just outside of the Beckway Anglican Primary School. With regards to the primary schools, who will be commencing on the 3rd of November. These are Oria Government, Bible Methodist, and Kingston Government.
The Education Minister also noted that all staff members entering the school compounds are required to demonstrate proof of vaccination or produce a negative COVID-19 result.
Staff members are also reminded that effective November 19th, 2021, that proof of vaccination is a requirement to enter the school premises, save and except those persons who are exempted from vaccination in accordance with the statutory rules and orders number 28 of 2021. Let us all continue to work together to ensure that our students are provided with the necessary support to continue their education.
The Caribbean Examinations Council today released the results for Vincentian students who wrote this year's CAPE, CSEC, and CSLC exams. Presenting the results from the National Insurance Services Conference Room was CXC Bank manager Dr. James Young, who noted that for English A, there was an 81% pass rate, with 21% of the candidates receiving a grade 1, which is an improvement over last year, where the number was 19%.
We had 1,590 candidates writing this examination in 2021, compared with 1,615 in 2020, 1,628 in 2019, and 1,766 in 2018. 81% of the candidates earned acceptable grades, 1 to 3, in 2021, compared with the 82% in 2020, 72% in 2019, and 61% in 2018. So quite consistent with last year's result. And it's a big leap over previous years. Note that in 2021, we had 21% of these candidates achieving grade 1, compared with 19% in 2020, 16% in 2019, and 12% in 2018.
There is also a noted improvement for mathematics. 1,545 candidates sat the exam, with 55% receiving the acceptable grade of 1 to 3.
1,545 candidates wrote this examination this year, compared with 1,563 in 2020, 1,591 in 2019, and 1,772 in 2018. 55% of the candidates achieved acceptable grades 1 through 3 in 2021, compared with 47% in 2020, 28% in 2019, and 36% in 2018. We would also like to highlight that 12% of the candidates in 2021 would have achieved grade 1, compared with 8% in 2020, 3% in 2019, and 4% in 2018.
Other CSEC subjects, including the sciences, recorded commendable pass rates. For the Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Examination, CAPE, a total of 1,450 candidates sat the exams this year. Dr. Young said that while there was an increase in absenteeism and a decline in entries, more than 90% of those who sat the exam received a pass grade from 1 to 5. He highlighted that for the first time in 4 years, students received a grade 1 pass in Accounts Unit 2.
61 candidates wrote the examination in 2021, compared with 37 in 2020, 38 in 2019, and 40 in 2018. 80% of the candidates achieved acceptable grades 1 through 5, compared with 65% in 2020, 61% in 2019, and 65% in 2018. Now, 2% of the candidates would have achieved grade 1 in 2021, and we must note that in the last 4 years, this is the only year that any candidate in St. Vincent and the Grenadines would have achieved a grade 1 in Accounting Unit 2.
CXC's Registrar Wayne Wesley said that Vincentian students and the Ministry of Education have 1 month to review the results and make queries, noting that these results are preliminary.
Release the results to the ministry the same day we're doing it to the students. It means that the ministry will still have an opportunity to review those results, and any particular concerns will be addressed to ensure that students are dealt with fairly. So the review period for St. Vincent will continue until, you have up to 30 days, so until the end of from now until about the end of November, for us to take into consideration any review or concerns that might be raised either by the Ministry of Education or the schools themselves with respect to students having the opportunity to ask for a review based on their concerns. So that I want to be clearly understood, that the results coming out and will be available to students today are preliminary results.
The registrar noted that more than 90% of the SBAs were submitted, and finalizing results should not be problematic. Delivering the feature address at the ceremony for the CXC results was Minister of Education Curtis King, who commended CXC for agreeing to have a second date for the sitting of this year's exams to accommodate Vincentian students, given the disruption caused by the eruption of the La Soufrière volcano and Hurricane Elsa. Minister King said while SVG was ill-prepared for these disasters, as they exposed the weaknesses in the education system, stakeholders did their best to prepare students for the CXC exams.
Schools in the red or unsafe zones located close to the erupting volcano were severely damaged, while those in the safe zones were used as shelters for persons who were evacuated from the unsafe zones. Online instructions, with all its challenges, was provided during this period, but was never, I repeat, was never a perfect substitute for face-to-face instruction. It is fair to say that collectively we were unprepared for the impact of these disasters. Nevertheless, we did not retreat to a state of helplessness. We thought critically, acted creatively, worked collaboratively, and communicated our plan of action regularly and effectively.
King expressed satisfaction with this year's results and congratulated parents, teachers, and the students who performed well despite the challenges.
I acknowledge your commitment and your resilience in the face of great adversities. You are all deserving of the accolades that you will receive because of your good performances. Let me remind you, the CSEC students, that there will be a place for you at the community college. And to the CAPE students, our candidates, all the CAPE students who meet the standards, there will be no less than 60 national scholarships, exhibitions, and grants for you to move on to the next phase of your education. That is to say, university education.
The results for the exams, which were expected to be released to candidates this evening, will now take place online at 10 a.m. tomorrow. In other news, a flag-raising ceremony was held today outside the administrative complex to commemorate the 76th United Nations Day, which was observed on Sunday, October 24th. The flag-raising ceremony was organized by the Office of the Resident Coordinator for Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in SVG. UN Resident Coordinator to Barbados, Didier Tribuc, said it is a momentous occasion and praised SVG for being the smallest country to sit as a non-permanent member on the UN Security Council.
Of October, the United Nations celebrated worldwide the adoption of the UN Charter by its founding members in 1945. And today's flag-raising ceremony and later tree planting in Rebecca are intended to signal our continued mutual commitment not only to the founding principle of the UN Charters, but also to these regions and to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And St. Vincent and the Grenadines continue to be an outstanding advocate for global cooperation and multilateralism. We are thus honored today to recognize the long-standing and fruitful partnerships of St. Vincent and the Grenadines to the United Nations for the past 41.
The UN Resident Coordinator committed to continue working with SVG in light of the many challenges facing the country brought on by natural disasters. He also praised Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves for his leadership in steering the country to recovery. Also addressing the flag-raising ceremony was Prime Minister Gonsalves, who said SVG continues to raise the UN flag in love, faith, and hope.
We are raising the flag today symbolically, but it affords us an opportunity to speak to some of these large issues. We are a young democracy, we are a young country, and there is a lot of learning still to be done about the United Nations and the work that the United Nations does. But I'll tell you this, that over a very short period of time, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has been punching above its weight and indeed has been making a very important contribution to peace, security, and sustainable development through the United Nations and its agencies. And we are very grateful that Didier has been able to come here with his team for us at this 76th anniversary of the United Nations, UN Day, to hoist the flag. And we do so with love and in faith and in hope.
PM Gonsalves noted the many economic and social benefits SVG has received from the UN, including the UN Global Appeal, which was launched to assist SVG in the aftermath of the recent volcanic eruption, raising more than $11 million.
When persons go to Western Union, 4,000 families, and get monies every month. That's the work of the World Food Program. That's a practical issue. When the 500 vulnerable families, when they are being taken care of with psychosocial support, that's the work of UNICEF.
SVG's permanent representative to the United Nations, Inga Rhonda King, delivered her address virtually and reflected on the day when SVG joined the United Nations 42 years ago.
With only a few exceptions, small states have been able to live in peace. On February 19th, 1980, approximately 4 months following our independence on October 27th, 1979, the Security Council voted unanimously to accept St. Vincent and the Grenadines as its 154th member of the United Nations. During our maiden statement in the United Nations General Debate later that same year, the late Honorable Hudson Tanis said this: "We are a small nation, but one with a clear view of what role we can play in world affairs."
This country has recorded another COVID-19 death. The latest victim is a 55-year-old female who tested positive on October 15th and died on October 27th. The deceased was unvaccinated. Her death brings the death toll from COVID-19 to 66. Meanwhile, 10 new positive cases were reported from 311 samples collected on Wednesday, resulting in a 17.8% positivity rate. 6 new rapid antigen positive results were also reported from flu clinics on Wednesday. The latest update from NEMO said there are currently 2 patients admitted for COVID-19 at the isolation facility at Argyle, both being unvaccinated. 33 patients have also been admitted to the COVID-19 wards at the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital. 30 of these patients are unvaccinated, 1 is partially vaccinated, and 2 fully vaccinated. 2 new recoveries were noted over the reporting period. 1,798 cases are currently active and 66 persons have died. 4,951 cases of COVID-19 and 3,087 recoveries have been recorded in SVG since March 2020. The World Pediatric Project on Thursday completed its 3rd mission to SVG for the year. The urology mission, led by Dr. Douglas Copeland, started on Sunday, October 24th and conducted 7 surgeries. 4 families from St. Lucia also benefited from the mission, with 4 children undergoing surgeries. Pediatric surgeon at the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital, Dr. Jasmine Ellis Davey, told SVG-TV News that they are happy that the team of doctors with the WPP was able to come to SVG in light of the COVID-19 pandemic.
And we are very enthusiastic to have the pediatric urology mission with us. Despite the pandemic, we are now able to offer pediatric urology care to patients in need of such. In the clinic, we saw 22 patients, and for the surgical week, we have done 7 cases. 3 of them are from St. Lucia and 4 from St. Vincent.
Head of the mission, Dr. Copeland, and his scrub nurse said they were excited to return to SVG to assist the children who are suffering with kidney and genital conditions.
To be back, to see some familiar faces and take care of patients that we'd seen before. Some surgeries are complex and require more than 1 operation, so finishing up things that we'd started to make patients happy. We've seen some smiles on some faces while we've been here this year. Well, I think it's a challenge to know exactly how surgeries turned out. Locally, people from other islands, it's tough to get in contact with them and see exactly how they're doing. We did some telehealth and were able to figure out via Zoom how to examine some patients and things like that, but I think there are some patients that we probably still need to follow up with that can't travel because of quarantine issues and the COVID issues. So hopefully that will change next year.
This is my 2nd trip. I've probably worked with him for about 5 years. I came 2 years ago for the first time. Amazing. I'm so happy to be back. It is the most lovely country with both the people and the architecture, the landscaping, everything's lovely. And the food. Bakes for days. I want bakes every day. Best seafood ever. The logistics and the preparation for the trip. So we kind of had to ship equipment and supplies out a lot sooner than normal, and just making sure everything was available. And for the kiddos, I think transportation, and for the ones who aren't local, getting to the island.
Dr. Copeland used the opportunity to encourage parents of children with medical conditions to seek care early in order to improve their quality of life and make things better.
It's been very, very good. Again, we weren't maybe quite as busy as we've been previously because of COVID, but we've I think we've completed all of our surgeries, and the patients are doing well. We've seen 30 patients, and we performed 7 complex surgeries. Well, I think the vast majority of what we take care of can be reconstructed so that they can have normal functionality and not be socially ostracized because of maybe an abnormal appearance or abnormal function. So I would encourage them to seek care if they have concerns about urinary tract issues. Well, it's the surgical management of kidney, bladder, and genital concerns, so like undescended testicles or deformations of the genitalia that boys are born with. Been very, I guess, smooth even with the COVID. The patients get tested, the hospital practices the same safety protocols as anywhere else, and I think, like I said, the only challenge is for the patients and parents who couldn't make it.
Meanwhile, Executive Director of WPP, Lauren McIntosh, said the urology mission and the surgeries conducted went smoothly.
All of the surgeries went well. The team is led by Dr. Copeland, who is a pediatric urologist from St. Louis Children's Hospital in Missouri, the U.S. And he's also accompanied by Dr. Bohannon, who is a pediatric anesthesiologist, and the OR nurse, Joe. So they're here for the entire week, and things have been going quite smoothly for the most part.
Breast cancer survivor Valerie Joy Cato is encouraging women in SVG to have a breast examination or mammogram done at least yearly. In this report, Cato shares her experience and what it took to stay cancer-free for 20 years.
Every year, Joy Cato celebrates her birthday twice, one on the day she was born and the other the day she had a mastectomy done, which she believes saved her life. Cato said she was not diagnosed with breast cancer by a self-breast examination, but when she visited her gynecologist, having reached 50 years and seeking ways to avoid menopause issues. After hormonal replacement was opted for, a mammogram was compulsory, and that was when a breast tumor was discovered.
It became clear that I had 2 spots on my breasts, one on either breast. So biopsies were recommended. Biopsies were done, and it turned out that on my left breast I had a tumor. The right breast was just cystic, fleshy, fatty stuff.
Cato said she knew nothing about breast cancer except from reading about it, and when it came to making a decision for surgery, she was told to ask her husband, which did not sit too well with her.
My attitude was, this is my breast, this is my body, this is not my husband's. So I didn't see why I had to get his okay, his authority, whatever. I was very specific. This breast is going. End of story.
Her surgery was successful, and subsequently 15 sessions of radiology was done in addition to medication.
These little tablets were extremely expensive in St. Vincent, and that they were not readily available. So we found out that we could get them out of St. Kitts, I think it was St. Kitts, at way lower cost. So that is how I was getting the tamoxifen. And April I did the radiation therapy, and that I did in Barbados.
Cato still does her regular checks, including self-examination. Her advice, however, is for every woman to have a gynecologist, and if they can't afford it, visit a clinic to have a nurse do a breast examination.
I have been doing my breast examinations there, because I still can't figure out how this thing really is supposed to work. So I will go to the clinic and the nurse will do the examination.
Cato does not regret her decision to have a mastectomy and is not afraid to share her experience, as she proudly wears a prosthesis.
There are ways of dealing with that matter, because and I don't think anybody could look at me and tell that I only have one breast. And even if I say and they look, they are not going to see because the post-thesis is going to be the same size as the healthy breast, if you will. So if you put it on properly on the bra, not lopsided, you know.
Kato's experience may not be the same for every breast cancer survivor. However, making an informed decision based on medical advice is key to beating breast cancer, especially when it is at an early stage.
And they need to ask questions. They need to ask. If you don't understand, ask. Don't matter, you can't, no matter how foolish you think you sound, ask the question.
For SVG-TV News, Larissa Pogslickett.